Good afternoon. 50 years ago, today, a day like today, the first brick was put in place to begin building a wall in the West. Those bricks, that wall, divided families, friends, and a culture. That wall created a fictitious division among human beings. It became a symbol of intolerance installed by hidden interests of a government. A wall that didn't reflect who the people were, but presumed to be the spirit of the people. Year after year, those bricks, that wall, created another wall in the mind of the people and imposed a man-made separation that was normalized by its mere presence. We have other walls today. Walls constructed around us, artificial and invisible walls that separate people, that affect human lives. Those invisible walls make us forget the only search and the only lesson that survive all generations, all cultures, all religions. The satisfaction of being a better human being. But how can we be a better human being if we know and we see injustice? And yet we continue under a falsely normalized reality, where we pretend that justice and law are the same thing. For how many years was human trafficking and slavery a normalized practice? People back then thought it was normal. They even get excited about it. It was all justified. Now we will be horrified. Now we persecute human trafficking because we know that humans and human beings cannot be treated like a product. Every human being has human rights that we need to respect. For many years, were people separated because the color of the skin, even not allowed to enter places. Now, we will not even understand how that could have happened. We are well united against South African apartheid, and we are ready to be all again united against any other kind of racial discrimination. For how many years were women just a reproduction accessory and marginalized to home labor? And now, here in Germany, your chancellor is a woman. For how many years was education the right of the wealthy? Now education is a human right. Although we have to remember and remind some people about it because sometimes they forget. For how long are we going to let a computer ensemble in Mexico to travel freely and with all its rights, while a Mexican cannot travel with all the freedom and with all his human rights? For how long we will enjoy kebab, while a Turkish is not permitted to travel freely with all his human rights? For how long will objects, products, and ideas be considered by government and by companies part of globalization, while immigrants are seen only as a local or even maybe a national issue? It is not hard to imagine, in a few years, our kids trying to understand why immigrants were treated the way we are treating them now. Trying to understand even why there were people called immigrants. The same way we don't understand today how long slavery lasted. There are too many examples of injustices justified by the law. And we keep them let happening. But the law is made by mankind. And it is men who create artificial separations. It is men who led into real suffering. The latest of those mankind constructed and unnecessary separations is reflected in the treatment we give to immigrants. It is reflected in the effort of some to demonize immigrants. Anders Breivik, the Norwegian extremist killer and confessed perpetrator of the terrorist attacks in Norway the past 22nd of July, he bombed a government building in Oslo. He killed people in a mass shooting in the island of Utøya. More than 69 people were killed under those attacks. not an immigrant. And immigrants do not demonize him. The list of people committing crimes against humanity who are not immigrants is extremely long. And that doesn't make immigrants see everybody else as a criminal. Immigrants will never demonize other people, because if immigrants understand something, it's that people are different. And that you cannot judge them as a group. That you cannot judge people for the color of the skin. You cannot judge them for where they come from. You cannot judge them for their money. You cannot judge them even for the political party they are part of. You can only judge people for their actions. I can't understand really the efforts to make immigrants a homogeneous group, ignoring the richness of their origins, the reasons to immigrate, their experience and skills. I am an immigrant myself, and I have gone through a harsh process to incorporate into a new society, one very different from the one I come from. I remember when I didn't want to integrate to that new society, when I didn't want to renounce who I was before I arrived to that new place. And I think it is very important for a first generation of immigrants to keep not renouncing to who you are in order to be grateful for the welcoming invitation of another country. What makes me different is what makes me a better immigrant. In order for integration to be real and a natural process, time has to pass. Maybe 3, 7, 12, 19 years. It depends from person to person. What is important is not how long it takes, but how real and committed is the person to do it. That is a process that is impossible to measure in bureaucratic terms. One has to have faith in the immigrants. One has to have trust in society we are building together. Immigration is not about learning a language, but about understanding the differences between where you were before and where you are now. Integration is not a one-way monologue. One has to repeat, it's not a one-way monologue one has to repeat as if we were a trained animal. It is a conversation between two cultures. Integration is not to be afraid to enrich your own culture with another culture. Integration is not only appreciating the exotic food and the music, it is also giving to the immigrants a chance to contribute with their experience in the areas of civil society. Integration is giving immigrants the same rights. It's giving them the same rights we fought for ourselves and we have today. Integration is integrating immigrants into their political life. Immigration is a question of tolerance, from both sides. If we are not willing to have tolerance, then you don't have the right to claim, you don't have the right to declare that one has entered and that one's belong into the 21st century. Because if you don't understand immigrants as human beings with the same rights, you belong to the older times of slavery. I'm here today because I know some Germans. I have received their kindness, their smartness, their great culture. I'm here today because I know that it is just a matter of time for Germany, who is known as the economic engine of Europe, to become known also as part of the engine for immigration justice. I know that people in Germany, immigrants and citizens, can unite to create the first step for this leadership. I want to propose to all of you today, immigrants and citizens, to create a new political party, a party for international citizens, for the citizens of the future, a political party for the rights of immigrants, to be fully part of society, a political party for the right to be judged by our actions and not by what people ignore about us. A political party for the rights of immigrants to be an equal partner in the construction of a better society. Let's create here in Europe, in Germany, in Frankfurt today, the political party for immigrants, Immigrant Movement International. Let's stand up. Let's look at people's eyes in the few years, look at history in the face and say, we did it. We stand against injustice. This is a way to lead. This is a way to start the global immigrant era to which all of us belong, because we are all immigrants at some point. I have heard the voice of the people here, the people who tore down the wall that divided a country before. Those people are the people who will tear down the invisible wall that is dividing all the people in the world now, the wall around immigrants. And this is because with immigrants, we can think of a better future. Thank you.